Hey, so do you ever wonder if you should be main or off tanking? If so, well, it just so happens that in this video, I have the answers to this dilemma. Because we'll be comparing all 4 tanks and seeing which one excels in the main and off tank roles. The method of comparison is looking at how well each tank can sustain themselves as main tanks and how much of their kit can they utilize while off tanking without missing out on much. Oh, and just as a disclaimer, this video is aimed at higher end content like extreme, savages, and ultimate raids, and I won't be going over invuns or tank swaps for tank busters and the likes, as these things are a given. This is mostly about who is the default main tank for the majority of an encounter. For lower end content, you can disregard this information because honestly, who actually cares who's main tanking in a normal raid or a 24 player alliance raid? Just let the tanks have their measuring contest. We'll start with the classic warrior, the manliest of tanks, the epitome of a main tank. If you have a warrior in your party, you bet your ass they'll be the main tank. So what does warrior have that makes them excel so much at main tanking? Let's go over it. Bloodwetting. Bloodwetting. This ability offers 10% mitigation for 8 seconds, another 10% for the first 4 seconds, a barrier worth 400 cure potency, and an effect that restores HP through GCDs worth 400 cure potency each, while the effect lasts. All of that with only a 25-second cooldown. That's a lot squeezed into one ability. The thing is here, Nascent Flash, which shares a cooldown with Bloodwetting, provides the same benefits but put onto another player, on top of Warrior keeping the healing effect of their GCDs, so it's even more value. You could consider this the Warrior's off-tank utility, but really this can be used as a main tank on the off-tank for shared busters, as long as the off-tank isn't stingy as and gives you their mitigation too. So with just 2 of those abilities, Warrior really isn't losing much if it were to main or off tank, but that's where Thrill of Battle and Equilibrium come in. Thrill raises the Warrior's maximum HP by 20%, restores the same amount, and is also healed for 20% more for 10 seconds on a 90-second cooldown. Equilibrium heals the Warrior for 1,200 cure potency, and leaves a 15-second regen with a cure potency of 200 for every tick, on a 60-second cooldown, and is affected by Thrill's increased healing potency. These 2 abilities would lose a lot of value if Warrior was delegated to the off-tank role. Not only that, but these 2 abilities plus Bloodwetting make Warrior the most self-sustainable tank in the game, comfortably taking the crown for #1 best main tank. For our second main tank contender, we have the bitch behind a shield. I mean, Paladin. A lot of Paladin mains have this strange case of being stuck in the past of their former Shadowbringer self and not realizing just how good of a main tank they are now. So let's open their eyes. Unlike the other 3 tanks, Paladin's short cooldown, Holy Sheltron, is quite unique, being on a 5-second cooldown and requiring 50 out of 100 of the oath gauge. The oath gauge generates by 5 for every auto attack the Paladin does. This means they could theoretically use 2 Holy Sheltrons one after the other. Holy Sheltron provides 15% mitigation for 8 seconds, another 15% for the first 4 seconds, and a regen effect with a cure potency of 250 for every tick and lasts 12 seconds. Unlike Warrior's Bloodwetting and Nascent Flash, Paladin is slightly different with its off-tanking utility, Intervention. Just like Holy Sheltron, Intervention costs 50 oath gauge, but is on a 10-second cooldown, and the effects are slightly different. Intervention gives the target 10% mitigation for 8 seconds, another 10% for 4 seconds, the same regen effect from Holy Sheltron, and if the Paladin has Rampart or Sentinel up when they use Intervention, an additional 10% mitigation will be added to the base effect, essentially making it as strong as Holy Sheltron as long as Rampart or Sentinel is up. So what is Paladin missing out if it mains or off tanks? Well, let's talk about the thing on Paladin's offhand, the shield. Shields are exclusive to Paladins, and offer roughly 30% block rate and 20% damage mitigation. This block rate can be increased to 100% through Bulwark, which lasts 10 seconds on a 90-second cooldown. Not only that, but during Paladin's Requiescat buff, they have access to the Confitia combo, a 4-step magical range combo that heals for 400 cure potency for each attack, totaling 1,600 key potency for the entire combo. Also, after every Royal Authority, Paladins get Divine Might, which gives them a free instant cast Holy Spirit, which also heals for 400 key potency. Overall, Paladins have some of the best passive mitigation, great burst mitigation tools, and plenty of self-sustain to take care of themselves. A lot of this value would be lost if they were to off-tank, making Paladin the second best main tank alongside Warrior. For our third main tank contender, we have the one and only Zuma Brame high actions per minute gun mode. Gunbreaker is possibly the most versatile tank in the game, being able to comfortably main or off tank and not losing much if anything by doing either role. This is due to their short cooldown Heart of Corundum and regen effect Aurora, both being usable on self and targeted party members. Heart of Corundum is on a 25-second cooldown and gives 15% mitigation for 8 seconds, another 15% for the first 4 seconds, and a 900 key potency heal when target drops below 50% HP or the 20-second effect expires. It also gives the shield from Brutal Shell to your target if you have Brutal Shell up, which is the second hit in Gunbreaker's combo, providing a 200 key potency shield. A nice little addition if anything. Aurora, on the other hand, is a simple but effective regen, providing 200 key potency per tick, lasting 18 seconds on a 60-second cooldown and holds up to 2 charges. So what does Gunbreaker lose if it off-tanks? Well, not much. As mentioned, it's one of the most versatile tanks in the game, and for good reason. But if it is to lose anything over other tanks, it's Camouflage, a 90-second cooldown which gives 50% parry rate and 10% mitigation and lasts 20 seconds. Parries only work on physical attacks, but the Constellation 10% mitigation makes this cooldown always good, even if an encounter is only doing magical attacks. You could argue that Gunbreakers could main tank over a Paladin if an encounter is doing physical damage, but even then the passive mitigation a Paladin has, plus its burst healing, far surpasses the value that Camouflage provides. Therefore, I place Gunbreaker as the third placed best main tank, so that leaves one final tank. For our fourth main tank contender, we have the trying to overcompensate with their giant sword subby wubby Dark Knight. Dark Knights make the best off tanks in the game and should never main tank over any other tank except in extremely niche circumstances. The reason for this is their utter lack of self-sustain, but they make up for this by having the potential most frequent and highest burst mitigation in the game through the usage of Dark Mind, the Blackest Night, and Oblation. Dark Mind mitigates 20% magical damage for 10 seconds on a 60-second cooldown. This is Dark Knight's equivalent to Thrill of Battle, Bulwark, and Camouflage, these being tanks' personal cooldowns, and all of which are on a 90-second cooldown. Except the pro for Dark Knights is theirs is on a 60-second cooldown, making it the most frequent, and it can mitigate the most damage of all the personals. The con is it only works on magical damage. Meanwhile, the Blackest Night and Oblation are similar to Gunbreaker's utility, both of which can be used on self and targeted party members. The Blackest Night is on a 15-second cooldown, uses 3000 MP, and provides a barrier that shields self or target for 25% of their maximum HP, and lasts 7 seconds. If this breaks, it gives the Dark Knight back their MP in the form of a quote-unquote free Edge of Shadow or Flood of Shadow. If it doesn't break, you can kiss that 3k MP goodbye, which makes using TBN awkward because you always want it to break, which isn't hard per se, it's just about learning a boss's outgoing damage and experimenting with TBNs. Thankfully, Oblation is a lot more simple. On a 60-second cooldown and holding up to 2 charges, Oblation mitigates 10% damage on self or target party member for 10 seconds. And really, that's all Dark Knights have. Definitely good mitigation, but their severe lack of self-sustain puts them at 4th place for being main tank. But in my heart, they are first placed best off tank. And that's what matters. Okay, the final results are in. Comparing all 4 tanks, we have come to the conclusion that the order of the main tank roles should go like this. Warrior first, Paladin second, Gunbreaker first, and Dark Knight fourth. Amazing. Now can we all stop telling Dark Knights to main tank? I'm looking at you, Paladin mains. Anyways, that's all I have for you today. If you enjoyed the video, do the typical YouTuber stuff, drop a comment, leave a like, whatever you want to do, subscribe. Also, follow my Twitch, please, I stream a lot, I would appreciate it. And goodbye. Oh, thank you to my Patreons as well, appreciate you guys. Bye bye now.